tracers are seen in the night sky as Ukrainian servicemen fire on the drone in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14, 2022. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. A rescuer works next to a residential building damaged by shelling, in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 15. State Emergency Service of Ukraine via Reuters. A woman reacts after she was rescued from a residential apartment building that was hit by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 15. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Ukrainian servicemen inspect the area in front of a residential apartment building after it was hit by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 15. Reuters. Marko Urica. View shows the interior of a damaged kindergarten in Kharkiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Alexander Lapshin. New members of the Territorial Defense Forces trained to operate the NLAW anti-tank launcher during military exercises in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 9. Reuters. Valentin Ogirenko. A woman cleans debris from her apartment inside a residential building after it was hit by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 15. Reuters. Marko Urica. A Russian military winter hat lies among belongings Russian soldiers left behind after Ukrainian forces routed their armored vehicles outside Brovary, near Kyiv, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Thomas Peter. A Ukrainian soldier directs a Russian tank that Ukrainians captured after fighting with Russian troops outside Brovary, near Kyiv, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Tanks are seen being destroyed on the outskirts of Brovary, Ukraine, March 10. Azov via Reuters. A hole in the roof of a tram is seen at a depot in Kharkiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Alexander Lapshin. A view shows a damaged window of a dress shop after shelling in the separatist-controlled city of Donetsk, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Stringer. A view shows a destroyed tank in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. Volunteers walk past beds in a pre-surgical room of a makeshift hospital inside a bomb shelter in Kyiv region, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Valentin Ogirenko. A fragment of a missile is seen in the street after shelling in the separatist-controlled city of Donetsk, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Stringer. People and medics help a wounded resident of a house destroyed by shelling in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. A woman and a child walk past a dead body in front of a residential building that was hit by a shell in the Obolin district in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Rescuers work to get a woman out of a residential building that was struck in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. State Emergency Service of Ukraine via Reuters. A kitchen is seen through a window of a residential building that was hit by a shell in the Obolin district in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 14. Reuters. Thomas Peter. An injured serviceman looks out of an ambulance following an attack on the Yevrev military base, outside a hospital in Yevrev, Ukraine, March 13. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. A tank with the letters Z painted on it is seen in front of a residential building which was damaged in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. A child pets a cat in a bus for refugees fleeing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in Lviv, Ukraine, March 13. Reuters. Pavlo Palamarchuk. A woman carries her dog during an evacuation in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 13. Reuters. Marko Urica. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky visits an injured Ukrainian serviceman at a military hospital in Kyiv, March 13. Ukrainian Presidential Press Service via Reuters. A view shows a convoy of pro-Russian troops outside the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. A woman stands outside a local hospital in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. A man walks by the debris of a cultural center and an administration building that were destroyed during aerial bombing in the village of Baishiv outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Thomas Peter. Ukrainian servicemen carry a dead body on a stretcher in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Marko Urica. A member of the Ukrainian forces takes a position in Irpin, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. An external view shows Hotel Ukraine destroyed during an airstrike in central Chernihiv, Ukraine, March 12. Reuters. Oleg Olivatenko. A woman reacts in front of a residential building which was damaged in the separatist-controlled town of Volnovakha in the Donetsk region, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Alexander Ermoshenko. People carry white flags as they cross the border between Bucha and Irpin next to a body lying on the street, in Irpin, Ukraine, March 11. Reuters. Serhiy Nuznenko. A Ukrainian soldier hides from a helicopter airstrike near Demidov, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Maxim Levin. Ukrainian soldiers walk past a monument of the city founder Duke de Richelieu, covered with sandbags for protection, in Odessa, Ukraine, March 10. Reuters. Alexandros Avramides. A view shows cars and a building of a hospital destroyed by an airstrike in Mariupol, Ukraine, March 9. National Police of Ukraine via Reuters. Olga hugs her boyfriend Vladimir as they say goodbye prior to Volodymyr's deployment closer to the front line, at the train station in Lviv, Ukraine, March 9. Reuters. Kai Pfaffenbach. Alexei Beregovy, a musician of the Kyiv Classic Symphony Orchestra, performs for journalists and people after an open-air concert named Free Sky at the Independence Square in central Kyiv, Ukraine, March 9. Reuters. Gleb Garanich. A boy plays basketball with a plush toy inside the sports hall of a primary school, transformed into temporary accommodation for people fleeing the Russian invasion of Ukraine, in Przemysl, Poland, March 8. Reuters. Fabrizio Bench. A member of the Honor Guard holds a portrait of a member of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Valery, who was killed during Russia's invasion of Ukraine, during a funeral ceremony in Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Valentino Jurenko. People wait below a destroyed bridge to cross a river as they flee from advancing Russian troops in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Thomas Peter. A police officer says goodbye to his son as his family flees from advancing Russian troops in the town of Irpin outside Kyiv, Ukraine, March 8. Reuters. Thomas Peter. A charred Russian tank is seen in the Sumy region, Ukraine, March 7. Irina Rybakova. Ukrainian Ground Forces. Children look on from a train window as they arrive in a Ukrainian train from Lviv, at the station in Przemysl, Poland, March 7. Reuters Yaronardi